Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Go ahead, hit the like, hit the share. This video, let's talk about Cheryl Mack statement she's made, her role with Jim Derogatis, the Savages, and a couple other things that caught my attention. If you don't remember, if you didn't know, there was a page that was exposing the so-called enablers. And she was on that list and listed she was the one responsible for the two houses in Atlanta. You remember those two houses? Let me refresh your memory.
I'm at my house right now in Atlanta where they basically been cleaning out my whole house. My living room. I want to thank all my fans for their support and it's what happens when you get, well, let people too close to you. People you've known for 25, 30 years. This is what happens. When I wash my clothes, wash machines, everything. Took everything. So, it's all love, yo. Keep my head up. Keep working on this album, man. You can't do nothing about something you can't do nothing about. But I do thank, the police department here for being quick to hop on everything and get some of my stuff back. And like I said, I thank all the fans from around the world who's been, sending out messages and everything and prayers and staying positive, keeping me positive through the whole thing. And just God bless y'all, man. One.
You know what's strange about that whole clip? I didn't see not one hostage.
Developing story in Johns Creek. Police are looking for an associate of R&B singer Robert Kelly. They say the man broke into Kelly's homes and stole everything inside. Channel 2's Mike Pachenik is live at the Johns Creek Police Department, and Mike, one neighbor says he saw some suspicious behavior there.
Yeah, Joby, the police say that associate was supposed to turn himself into detective yesterday, but he didn't, so now he's on the run. Investigators say he stole R. Kelly's stuff and sold it off. Tables, chairs, vases, even this diamond-encrusted hoodie, just some of what Johns Creek police say was stolen from R&B star R. Kelly's two homes.
Just everything that they could get into the truck during that week, they took.
Captain Chris Byer says a maid hired to clean this mansion reported the ransacking.
Most of the furnishings, televisions, belongings, all were missing from the residence.
Well, there was all kinds of strange vehicles and people coming and going from the house all times during the night.
This neighbor told us he saw men removing items from the house. He asked us to conceal his identity.
We thought the house was empty and thought that maybe the people we saw were just coming to the house from time to time.
Neighbor Mark Gibson says just last week a truck showed up, and so did police with guns drawn. So it's very surprising. Byer says the men told police Kelly associate Alfonso Walker hired them to clear the homes and sell off the stuff room by room.
That's one of the indications that he did made was he felt like he was owed some money and this was his way of getting it back.
Byer says Walker is now on the run.
He needs to turn himself in so that we can get this straightened up.
I didn't even know who was living there, to be honest. So we didn't know there was anything inside there to steal.
Can you tell us your name first? My name is Timothy Savage. Before you leave the microphone, though, can we ask you, it's a pretty serious charge to say that your daughter's being held against her will. How old is she and what evidence do you have she's being held against her will? My daughter is, right now, she's 21 at this time.
Damn, did he forget how old his daughter is? My daughter is 20. What? Looking ass.
I'm gonna ask you some questions after this. So if you can hold your questions, I'm gonna ask a couple questions for people. So allow my family and friends to speak and guests to speak, so we can have that honor to share and put this out here, okay?
Look at this auntie like, oh Lord, goddamn, my time coming next.
Thank you. This is my wife, Jonjolyn Savage. I'm Jonjolyn. It's spelled Jonje.
So if you hadn't figured it out by now, the Savages are responsible for reaching out to a lot of these women and putting all this into motion.
L-Y.
Child, look at the come up now. I can't.
And the house that we're standing in front of today is the first time I've been at this location. But through the sources of Cheryl Mack, which was his assistant that gave me information about the guest house. Also, I have pictures.
So you always come to find every single thing these people have to say is somebody told me, this person told me, that person told me.
Of where the house was, inside this house where he resided, where he...
And I'm glad she name dropped Miss Cheryl Mack and letting us know she's the one who told the Savages about this location. Like I said, she was over the two houses they got robbed. Continue.
Room set up for like a hotel for the girls to stay in. And he also had a black room where he had...
Oh, but the neighbors, if you go back to the news reports, can say they had no idea the house was being lived in. So it seemed like to me from y'all's story, a lot was going on, even though the neighbors never saw anything.
Where they do different sexual acts in, and then he had the separate rooms, 3 separate rooms, total 4 rooms in his house, which they have it all identical, like set up. My daughter's severely brainwashed. She's brainwashed. My name is Asante McGee, Asante. I had an encounter with R. Kelly, and I lived with him at another location that's not far from here. I've participated and witnessed a lot of acts that I did not agree with, and the way he manipulates each and every woman that comes around. I'm blessed to have a strong will mind, and the things that I've witnessed. I have a 17-year-old daughter myself, and I always thought this would be my daughter. I've been reading the blogs.
It seemed like to me the biggest conflict that came in the beginning with Asante and Angelo Clary was the fact that they fed her this story about witnessing Azriel doing certain things, which was disrespectful to Angelo. But again, these are the lengths that the Savages were willing to go to. Put all these people's so-called business out there for the public to laugh and make a spectacle about while proclaiming to want their children to come home. But let's go back to Cheryl Mack, because you can go back to this video, the public shakedown of R. Kelly, and finish up.
Contributed to my first story.
So back to Cheryl Mack. Let's just listen to this online reading from Mr. Jim Derogatis and what he got from Cheryl Mack. And it's funny, she tried to go back and recant her statements, but guess what? When you go out here and start spilling your so-called story, you can't take that shit back. Let's see what he had to say
About what a police report had called the R. Kelly cult. The singer's former personal assistant, Cheryl Mack, told me a lot about her time working for Kelly and how she saw him mistreat the women he housed. 2 of those women, Asante McGee and Kitty Jones, talked to me for the first time about what they experienced while living with what they had also come to call the cult. All of them said they believed Kelly had a problem and he had to stop. Girls initially think, "This is R. Kelly. I'm going to live a lavish lifestyle," Cheryl Mack said. "No, you have to ask for food. You have to ask to go use the bathroom. He is a master at mind control. He is a puppet master." Kelly ordered the women he housed to dress in jogging suits because he doesn't want their figures to be exposed. He doesn't want them to look appealing to anyone else, she said. When other men entered the room, he made the girls turn around and face the wall in their jogging suits because he just doesn't want them to be looked at by anyone else. A Tennessee native who juggled corporate jobs with freelance artist management, Mack met Kelly at the 2004 MTV Video Music Awards in Miami. 3 artists she represented wound up having sexual relationships with the star over the next decade, she said. The first was an artist in her 30s. The second was a 17-year-old singer from Chicago's West Side, then living in Atlanta. Mack said Kelly took the young singer's virginity, and when her relationship with him ended a year later, she tried to slit her wrists on several occasions, and she drove her car in the middle of traffic in Chicago.
That story sounds eerily familiar. But it wasn't from nobody named Precious Way. I'll tell you that much. Sound a little bit more like, let's say, Tracy Sampson.
Other sources confirm that story. The young singer and her mother approached Susan Loggins. Citing attorney-client privilege, the lawyer who'd made a specialty of settling complaints by underage girls with Kelly declined, as usual, to comment.
The lawyer that made a specialty upon suing R. Kelly for money, you don't say. Susan Loggins. The first Gloria Allred, huh?
But Mack said Kelly's attorney, Ed Jensen, and manager Daryl McDavid worked their magic to get the singer and her mother paid off, $750,000. This is what Robert told me. At the time, he was such a big hit for that FIFA Cup, he didn't want the publicity, so he settled. After Kelly's first trip to South Africa in 2009, he returned the next year to perform at the opening ceremony of the 2010 World Cup. "I see the light at the end of the tunnel," he sang in Sign of a Victory, his newest anthemic single, "and I can feel heaven in its place." At Kelly's suggestion, Mack paired the young singer she represented with a 19-year-old songwriter she met at an Atlanta club called the 12. She looked like an Aaliyah. She had a beautiful voice, and her potential in terms of being a writer was amazing. The star began a sexual relationship with the songwriter after Mack began to represent her, Mack said. And the songwriter also became a member of the cult. "She looks awful. He dresses her up in sweats, threw her in a room, and threw away the key. She doesn't write anymore. She doesn't record any music. She does absolutely nothing. She's a servant to Robert. It's so sad." Though Mack said Kelly's behavior troubled her, she accepted his offer in mid-2013 to serve as his personal assistant.
So, You know what I noticed? She was his personal assistant, but got producing credits on one of his albums. How did that work out? And not only that, she's so bothered by everything that's going on. Why would you continue to stay?
Like many before her, she thought she could change him. I really, honestly did want to help him. I felt like I was the only one who was going to. Though some of the women in the cult were in their 20s or 30s, Mack used the word girls because Robert makes all of them dress up like little girls. Just all kinds of little girl outfits. Barrettes and scrunchies and things like that.
So you admit R. Kelly gets these women of age and have them dress into this girl image.
He orchestrated threesomes and sometimes demanded the girls have sex with him in front of others. During one of those scenes, Mack said he told the young singer she represented, "If you want to learn and engage an audience, you have to learn it right here." After a year and a half and a credit on the Black Panties album, Mack split from the singer in the summer of 2015.
So the summer of 2015. Y'all just take note of this year, 2015, because this was a very pivotal point for R. Kelly when it comes to all these people around him turning against him. So it was very funny and humorous for me to watch all these people online talking about who's the mole, who's the mole. Y'all are funny.
I felt like I had enough. He was saying things like Cheryl was in control of my whole life. He did the same thing with Daryl McDavid and everybody else. She was taking my money. Mack denied that allegation.
Oh, so R. Kelly felt like you were taking his money, huh? Oh, okay. Well, check this out. If y'all will go, I'm going to just stop him right there. Y'all could go check out the rest of his online book and hear him spin his narrative. But it's funny that Cheryl Mack mentions that she was accused of stealing because from what I read in her little statement was that she had little personal debit cards in which she gave to these girls. So what's to say she didn't have her own personal debit cards spinning her own way? And it's funny, with all this she had to say, I didn't see a mention of a whole lot of people that have deemed themselves victims with this surviving R. Kelly. Just like a lot of the key influential people such as the bodyguards who have never seen some of these so-called accusers. So it just lets somebody like me to even wonder if they were ever really with R. Kelly. It could be very well possible, like with Horonda, she was with somebody in the entourage and not necessarily with R. Kelly. Yet, he's the star. He's going to get the most heat. But going back, I'm just finding it so hard to believe that R. Kelly, Daryl McDavid, and Milton Brown are the only ones sitting being charged, while they have been provided a whole list of so-called enablers who have yet to been questioned. And we'll get to that in another video. R. Kelly has told us in multiple ways, from his publishing, which people are really confused when he was talking about signing over his publishing. That only applied to Jive Records. That didn't apply to any of his body of record, his catalog with everything else he produced with RCA and anything else here and thereafter. So with that being said, people were so dismissive when he's telling you these people have been stealing his money from the beginning. But rather than investigate these extortionists and all these people who are publicly denouncing R. Kelly, but telling you, oh, I sat there and watched all this illegal activity, makes absolutely no sense. Miss Cheryl Mack goes on to say that she was harassed by Milton. Maybe that's why he was included into the indictment. Because as we know, when it comes to the Fed, if somebody such as the Savages went down there and name dropped you, of course you gonna name drop some people too. Keep yourself out the hot seat. But it's just strange as I'm listening to Brother Block and his open forum last night and Team Truth talk about the situation with Azriel. It's like I said from the beginning. More people have problems with the age of consent laws than actually the topic in hand. We cannot hold R. Kelly accountable for people's hate for his moral decisions. If you don't feel like he should date women half his age, 3 times his age, fine. But what we're talking about, who support and defend him, is that he has broken no laws. And what you fail to realize is that these parents and all these people spent this narrative in the public eye. Even with Azriel, for example, they put out the story that she was missing, knowing damn well she was not missing at all. Yet nobody's called them out on that at all. Even though she was spotted in so many different places, she was being told that she was missing, and nobody said anything about it. Nobody called the parents out on that. They continue to spin this narrative that he's a pedophile and targets young women. I'm reading Cheryl Mack's statements, and it's just crazy. All these stories are hand-me-downs, carbon copies of original stories that have been publicized by the same person. And to be sitting here giving a story that's not yours, I've never heard this person, Precious Way, speaking out on it, though I have heard her speaking out on the fact that she's very well aware of how people in the music industry will specifically want to have sex with her or whatever the case may be, but she hopes that her talent would shine more. This is my point looking at this whole story. These women are not naive. When I look at this from a whole perspective, these women in my eyes decided, I want to do this in order to get this. And from my perspective, you cannot do this to get this and then play victim. Period. But since we're going to go this route, why aren't people like Cheryl Mack in federal custody right now? I noticed Ruby Chris, another so-called enabler, and Lisa Van Allen is following Cheryl Mack. Nobody thinks that's a little bit odd? Her promoting her son out here. You see, if you haven't caught on, it seems like in the black community, one person has to be knocked off the throne in order for the next to come up. And we just sit by and we enable that. That's what I get out of this whole situation. R. Kelly didn't have any enablers. And the way they have spent this story to keep themselves out of the forefront and take accountability for if they are saying that he is this and he is that, what role did they play? The last thing I wanted to point out before I close this video was again, so this was Azriel's Twitter. And if you look closely, you will see it says 18 years old. So when they keep telling this story about Azriel, they keep forgetting to say she was 17 when he met her. And she was a few months away from being 18. Does that make it better? I don't know. But we are again talking about the law. And when it comes to these girls, he did not break the law. In the indictment, I noticed that the RSK Enterprises is listed as the so-called business, one of the businesses involved with this Rico charge. And it's funny that the registered agent name is James Mason, the same person that is in jail or that was in jail for allegedly threatening Tim Savage. But it is so also funny that the person that is on record threatening Tim Savage is Don Russell. But nobody's talking about that. How did they switch that up? It's been a lot of scamming out here, and according to what I've heard in these little fan groups, people have been acting on behalf of R. Kelly under the instructions of a certain individual. Nobody has talked about that. We have been so distracted. So, I'm going to end this video on this note. If you were in his circle and you were stealing his money, and he was investigating, trying to find his money, would you, A, own up and take accountability for it? Or B, link up with people who are destroying and assassinating you in front of everybody? So with all that being said, it's a fact that R. Kelly has his own SoundCloud, yet his music is now being leaked. It's a fact this man is worth millions of dollars, which is unaccounted for. It's a fact that all of these people that were allegedly working for R. Kelly are all questionable. And it is also a fact that these same ones pointing the finger at R. Kelly, if they're going to stand by the stories they are putting out there, they're going to have to take some accountability. So if this Cheryl Mack wants to insist that all those things she put in her statement are true, considering she was there from 2005 until 2015, she should have seen quite a lot. I don't see a whole lot more names in these statements, but I do notice she's name dropping some of the people such as R. Kelly's A&R, DJ Wayne Williams, Junebug, who is also in the indictment. All this, yet we see her to this day on Instagram living her best life. Yet according to her story, she was the person booking these hotel rooms, transporting these girls, making sure they got from A to B, and giving them these debit cards which were linked to R. Kelly's bank accounts. Now, what are your thoughts on Cheryl Mack and her involvement in this takedown of R. Kelly? Azriel told us out of her own mouth that her parents encouraged her to lie about her age. And when I go to her profile, I see her flaunting the age of 18 at that time. So, what do you believe? Do you believe that it's just coincidental R. Kelly is out here targeting all these young girls? Or do you think that these parents are positioning themselves to get next to R. Kelly? And pending things not going their way, we see how the narrative unfolds. The indictment lists this RSK Enterprises as part of this Rico. We don't see R. Kelly's name under the registration. We see James Mason, the same guy that's in jail that was arrested for allegedly threatening Tim Savage. However, you can go and pull up the reports. It wasn't James Mason that allegedly made these threats. It was Don Russell. Yet, some strange reason, the charges were placed upon this Mason guy, who's registered to this RSK Enterprises. Is that a coincidence as well? This is just so crazy how deep this goes, and the levels people will go to cover up their bullshit. And this man, Alfonso, clearly stated he feels he was set up. Maybe he was. By the person who was over the houses. The same person who was setting up all these so-called trips, hotel stays, flights. People have been robbing R. Kelly blind. And all these people have questionable backgrounds. Yet we're supposed to just accept the stories they tell us. This goes back from the 90s. Same time frame where all these allegations pop up. And if you go to the timeline, it's mighty coincidental these people were bringing up this so-called alleged sex tape in between these settlements. And if you ask me, it was for that specific purpose. Shakedowns. Nothing more, nothing less. We seem to have forgot the $1 million question. See, people got distracted with all the shenanigans because some people were brought into the middle, being scammed by some of these people that were allegedly working for R. Kelly, who were only looking out for their own best interests. I believe all these pieces fit into this puzzle. And all we got to do is just keep collecting and paying attention. Because if they're going to sit here and keep pointing the finger at R. Kelly, we're going to have to come back to these people and the roles they played. Shout out to everybody supporting this channel. Shout out to everybody contributing to the Cash App, the PayPal. It's Prima Donna, ENT. What's your thoughts? Comments. Have a great night.